Hello, welcome to Consciousness Rising episode 4. As I said before with these videos, what I'm trying to do is bring some sort of psychological and consciousness theories to people that you may not have heard before, and I'm trying to make them sort of easy to understand, and because a lot of psychological stuff, when you read it, it's quite wordy and it can be a bit overwhelming. I struggle with some of it, but I'm trying to just get a concept and just cut it down to an easy to understand, easy to digest kind of format. So that's what I'm trying to do here. This episode, I feel, is probably the most important. I feel that this work that I'm going to go on to talk about is some of the most empowering and powerful work that we can do whilst in a human vessel. It's not easy work, and I'll go on to talk about why. And also, I just want to point out as well that, as I've also said before, this series that I'm putting together, it's sort of progressive. So if you've not seen any of my videos before, it might well be okay to watch this one on its own, but it's way better if you start from episode 1. And this one in particular is very linked to episode 4, which I'll try and sort of explain towards the end. Okay, so here we go. I'll get on with it. We're going to be talking about shadow work. Okay, and shadow work is, like I said, I feel the most important work we can do. We all carry a shadow. The shadow is the unconscious parts of our psyche that we suppress. Often these unconscious thoughts or feelings are dark, feelings like rage, envy, selfishness or desire. So what happens with shadow work? As I say, none of us are free from it. We all have a shadow, and it follows closely behind us. These feelings that we have perhaps in childhood, like these dark feelings, they're feelings that we deny as adults, or we try and push away, and they then go into our unconscious and they remain hidden. Shadow work. Coined by Carl Jung, he really is, and I've got some slides and quotes from him coming up. He really is the master of this stuff. Okay, why we suppress things. Okay, when we're young and we express these dark feelings, we are taught that these feelings are unacceptable by parental figures and other authoritative members of society, be that teachers, other adults, uncles, aunts, grandparents, whoever they are. So in order to adjust, we often push these feelings down. These feelings become our shadow. So, and you can see if you've been watching all my videos how this is linked to episode 2, because in episode 2 I talked about the subconscious and how it's programmed between 0 and 7. Well, if you're a young child and you're feeling rage, envy, whatever, and a parental figure says, oh, please don't stop doing that, and you get sort of sanctioned for doing it. You're not a good boy if you do that, or a good girl if you show these feelings of jealousy, envy, rage, whatever. You learn to adjust by hiding those feelings. Now, the sad part about that is, those feelings might be completely fine to have. There might be a very good reason why that child or young individual is feeling rage, anger, envy, and rather than talking through it with them and getting them to work with it, society tells them that these feelings are wrong, so therefore they get pushed down and become the shadow. The progression of the shadow, it's always there lurking in the background. The problem is that most people are unaware of their own shadows, so these feelings often remain hidden, and that's exactly what happens. You're suppressed in childhood, or from whoever or wherever, or you learn to adjust and deny yourself these feelings that you may be feeling for a perfectly good reason, and then it becomes your shadow. And then, then it becomes hidden. And most people, we've all got shadow work to do. It does remain hidden, and it comes out in ways that I'm going to explain in a minute. But yeah, we all have this, How many people really, when you think about it and you think back to your childhood and you think about perhaps there was a time that you was really angry and you was perhaps told to stop it because you're not being a good child for that. Really think about that. It's interesting, I think. This is how it can come out. And you probably, lots of you have heard this term of projection, psychological projection. So if it isn't worked on and integrated, and it's pushed down, like I've just explained, in adult life it will manifest sometimes as psychological projection onto other people. Now, I'm sure everyone listening to this at some time has been a victim of someone else's shadow. Someone else has projected their bull crap onto us for what, and it's quite weird when it happens, but they can't see it. And that's why this also is linked to episode 2, because when it's subconscious, it's automatic and you can't see it, you're not aware of it. So people that do this type of behaviour, and we've all done it, I've done it, I know for a fact I have, we're not aware. So there, it says there on the slide, therefore the shadow material we have denied as children will often project onto other people through judgment. For instance, you know how you get some people that are just really judgmental, and it might be, it's not always, but often it can be linked to shadow work. So some people might just hate, I don't know, gays, for instance. More often than not, it could be that actually, as part of that person's shadow, they might have had homosexual feelings, because it can be sexual feelings as well, and that was taught to be wrong in their head, so they've pushed it down into the shadow, and then as they've grown up, they don't want to look at that behaviour anymore because it reminds them of them and their shadow stuff and all these feelings down inside that they're locking away. So therefore, they'll project and they'll judge others. It's not just sexual feelings. It can be a group of certain individuals. Teenagers. They're going to attack me or whatever. That might be a shadow thing that you've had. Maybe you, when you was a teenager, you attacked someone. That's how it works, and I'm not judging anyone, but this is how it can manifest in psychological projection. And you can read, like I say, you can read books and books and books on this stuff, but I try and present these presentations into sort of like easy to understand concepts. So often, if you're projecting, it could be that you've got some shadow stuff you need to work through. The problem with most people, and I'm going to be completely blunt here, most people do lack the courage to face shadow and would rather just run as fast as possible in the other direction than go within their own soul. So many people don't want to do this work, and I get it. It's really, really hard work to do, to actually sit with yourself and notice all these behaviours and reactions that you're having and think, where do they come from? And am I right in thinking that? Or is that because I'm hurt in some way? And as I've written at the bottom there, fear is the biggest reason most won't do this work. And it is scary, none of us like to admit we've got faults, but we all have. And at the end of the day, I've said before in these videos, none of us are perfect. We've all got shit to work on. I have certain behaviours that I know are shadow type behaviours, and I'm trying to work on them. But luckily, I was in the position where other people, someone very close to me, was able to point it out to me because I was unaware of it. Now I'm becoming aware of it. I'm conscious of it, so I'm trying to work with it rather than react in the same way that I do. Because we all have these reactions, We're human. We're not infallible. How to work with shadow? Okay. The best way to integrate our shadow, so work with it, is to bring it to light. This means, first, we must bring it into our awareness, so you're making the subconscious conscious. And then we have to learn to accept these parts of ourselves in order to heal. And that's not an easy thing to do, is it? To actually sit and think, let me look at all my own baggage that I've carried around for however old you are. You might have carried some stuff from years and years ago. To actually sit with it, it's really uncomfortable. But it's also extremely rewarding, this work. So, you get back what you put into it. It's just not very easy to do, which is why most people don't do it, and they'd rather just sit projecting their vomit onto other people. The great Carl Jung. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This is a path to enlightenment, and I'm not knocking a lot of the New Age stuff. Some of it's good, But so many people think, oh, ooh la la, I'll just sit and I'll just meditate my way to bliss. And again, I'm not knocking meditation. Meditation is great in the right context. This is the true work here, completely summed up perfectly in that quote. You know, that this is the path to enlightenment. It's not reading the blooming Bible and then praising the angels and all that. It's sitting with yourself and making it conscious, working with it. Don't run from it, because that is overcoming fear as well. Because fear is a big part of it. But, you know, we all run from fear, but let's face it. You know, be a warrior and face it and work with it. I've done a little slide on contemplation here. The art of contemplation is a powerful tool for looking at one's consciousness. I've put there that it's simply sitting alone in deep thought. This has sometimes been described as daydreaming. We can contemplate on our own inner world. Deep contemplation is a very rewarding thing. It's not the same as meditation. Meditation's much more to do with calming the mind and maybe having a focus and finding that calm center. But contemplation, I think, sometimes is even more powerful. It's when you sit quietly on your own and just think deeply, and you know, yeah, you go into like a daydreamy kind of state. I've done this lots of times, and sometimes it's good for looking at shadow, but it can also be used for like working out dreams and aspirations and where you want to be. How many people do this? How many people sit with themselves and actually, you know, really contemplate, really think deeply about why they are the way they are, why things have gone the way they're things, what you could do differently. I find that very powerful. And I've put a couple in quotes there. Why we think the way we do about ... Really question yourself, you know, sit there and think where did I get this belief that all certain types of people are evil? That's just an example. I don't think that way, but some people do, you know, and it usually is part of their shadow. But call it into question. You know, really deeply think, call it into question, and then work with it and think, am I right in thinking that? Or is there a different way I can think about it? And then the bottom one I've put, why do I react in that way to that behaviour? A lot of shadow work's it's very reactive. You know, someone will come and say something that might trigger you, and you're reacting a certain way. Like maybe you'll think, oh, I'm being, you know, I'm a victim. They're attacking me. And question it. Why do I always react that way when such and such says that? I wonder what that's about. That is contemplation. That's deeper thinking. That's not just walking around in a daze. That's actually giving some considerable thought before you do things and actually thinking, could I do things differently? This is such a big thing. That picture on the left, I was wrong. The three most powerful words you can say. You know, we're not always right. I've been wrong loads of times in my life and had to admit it and accept it. And yeah, it sucks and it's not always easy to do, but we're not always right. You know, we have to move past it. And being able to accept our failures and shortcomings is powerful medicine. I'm talking, Native Americans would see that as medicine. Medicine is anything that can bring healing. They saw everything as medicine. Like there's a medicine to grass, or there's a medicine to the wind. Everyone has a medicine, which is like a gift. But it is medicine to be able to say I was wrong and actually look at yourself and then reevaluate. By looking at our past behaviours and being truly honest with ourselves, we can move forward. No one is perfect, and mistakes can be your greatest lessons. I really believe that. Learning from mistakes can guide us into more positive outcomes in the future. You know, it is okay to make mistakes, and if you've wronged someone and you're truly sorry, go and admit it. Go and say, you know, I'm really sorry about that, and actually I was wrong, I was a scumbag, or, you know, and I am genuinely sorry. That's how you get a true apology, but actually, you don't just say sorry and it's meaningless. You have to actually know why you're sorry. You know, what are you sorry for? And that's fine. Then what you do is, you integrate it and you don't ever do it again. And you move forward. You know, mistakes are great lessons. You know, don't keep making them, because then you're just repeating the cycle, which is hard when it's subconscious. Again, I implore everyone to go back and watch episode 2. Because when it is subconscious, it's deep and it's hard to change when it's a pattern, but there are ways to do that. But yeah, being able to say I was wrong and I'm sorry, powerful, powerful stuff. And that's it really. My last slide. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. Carl Jung again. Brilliant. All these videos are about at the moment are about looking at self, and even my next video I'm going to explain EFT. I've already got the slide prepared, so I'll probably do it next week. Emotional freedom techniques, which is an energy psychology. What I love so much about EFT is that it can address shadow in such a beautiful way. And the other thing I've seen it do a lot as well with people is it can unlock the shadow. And I'm a therapist. I work with people in counselling, and counselling's great and can work with shadow, great. But the beautiful thing about EFT is sometimes you'll have someone in front of you who's tapping on a certain issue, and once you start tapping these acupressure points while working, confronting these dark feelings, other things pop up. It's really bizarre. I've seen that happen time and time again, and often people look quite gobsmacked when it happens. They're like, oh, where did that come from? And it's always linked in some way. It'll be linked to some sort of past event, because events obviously they form the subconscious. So someone could be tapping on a certain fear of something, say like, I don't know, going outside as an example, and they'll just we might just generalize and work on that going outside problem, and then they start to unlock the memories that led to that behavior, and that's really, really powerful. And the beautiful thing about EFT is as well, you can learn it in a minute, and but it could also take a lifetime to master, because often for me as the practitioner, it's about asking the right questions and making the right connections with people, and it is great to work with a practitioner. But the beautiful thing about EFT, you don't need me, and someone might come for an EFT session with me, and once they've learnt that technique, they can take it away and go and work on their own stuff for the rest of their lives if they want, or for the next year, or it's powerful stuff. So my next one, and this is how I'm trying to link things together. So episode 2 was linked to this, because it's dealing with those subconscious patterns. This is obviously all about shadow. I've really simplified it down. I hope you've understood it, because I'm trying to put a lot of really complex psychological things and make them really simple, because often when it's simple we can digest it and understand it. So next week, hopefully I'll record episode 5, which will be on emotional freedom techniques. Alright guys, take care.